couple seconds here. It's just
Fred, I'm not kidding. I want to go. Literally, that's what I want to do in my next job.
I'll send you out with the guys. You probably change them.
Like an apprenticeship?
Yeah.
We're actually.
No, it's funny, because the father very young told me I didn't want to be a farmer.
Black.
I made it very clear. Here's what you don't want to do.
Okay. All right, so we'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the reading and the approval of the minutes for our March 18th, 2021 meeting. I need a motion to approve the minutes that were presented.
Make a motion, Eric.
And a second. Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
On to the finance report.
I'll make a motion to approve the check details as presented.
Okay. Need a second on that.
I'll second that.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye. And that was for both March and April, for the minutes.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
And I will make a motion to accept both the March and the April cash flow statements as presented in review.
Thank you. So I need a second for that.
I'll second that.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to the mowing contracts. Approval of mowing contracts. Anybody have anything you want to talk about with the mowing contract? April, do you have?
The page is in there. I sent it out
Yes.
to
Yep.
several different people. Apple's came in as half the price of the second bidder. He does a really good job. We've been happy last several years with him, so.
Okay.
So be it.
All right. If nobody has any objections to that, we'll make a motion to accept the low bidder.
Make a motion to accept Apple Trucking and Landscaping's bid, Eric.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And on to the new policy regarding
So
projects.
this is just something that started discussion on, was to whether, with us, when we do an approval on a project, there's no sunset date on the approval. So, we have projects now like the Casco Golf Course, which is how we approved well over a year ago. And they haven't moved forward on that project, so they haven't moved forward on the contracts. But then we've got other ones that are, they're rush, and then everything dead on our end. So the point was, should we have some policy that these approvals only last for a certain amount of time? And clearly, I think policy should have the ability to extend that time frame, if there's circumstances out of their control. But what do we do with someone like Casco Golf Course that they don't build for 4 years and then all of a sudden they show up and, they won't show up on thing. I mean, in reasonableness, one would say, well, things change in 4 years, you should maybe take another look at this project or the economics. So
Renee, what do you think is an appropriate amount of time?
I don't know.
I mean, like a 24-month period and then a review, or?
I would say a year, like a planning board.
I was going to say a year or at most 18 months. I mean,
And we should have the ability to approve extensions, when there's unforeseen circumstances, or we feel they're putting a good forth effort together. But
You have the ability, no matter what, okay, once something's approved, to pull, to give them notice. So that's the opposite of, automatic sunset. Now, planning boards, as you know, have like a year for an approval, and then it sunsets unless you vest in the approval. We've never really done that, but I've never seen anything kind of like where we are with these projects, where we also kind of unprecedented where we've been. Where just things have just sat. I mean, we'll talk about free point and other stuff. So, you can do it either way. You can put in but I would suggest, give yourself some runway. But at some point, like some of these people need to be told you're either in or you're out.
Right.
But again,
I mean, it does force them to re-engage a little bit at a certain point of, it just doesn't sit out there indefinitely.
I think the financing is so difficult on a lot of things right now. I think the banks, it's, the world we live in is really very different. Like, there seems to be too many apartments being built. There's, I've got people getting crazy amounts of money for financing. I think, I did a house closing for my girlfriend. People put down $1,000 and they get these $9,000 credits. I mean, we're at the end of the rope where there's gonna be some problems here.
Yeah.
So if you want, maybe we put into two,
What do you think is an appropriate amount of time, Paul?
I think a year, 2 years, go 2 years, and then it drops out. And then on the ones that we have we have seen no action on, let's send them a notice, give them 30 days to re-engage or they're done.
If there's a financial issue or something, it's easy enough with the.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A year or two, and
and
then
we can extend it, for sure.
So go 2 years and then, just send it, then we have a policy that says we'll give them 30 days notice beforehand and,
So I mean, a year is a short period of time in a project, like, so, I mean,
Yeah.
a lot can, you can cook off a year pretty easily, with just some peripheral stuff. Because at the same time, we want something on the front end that go, geez, I only got this approved for a year and there's not enough time.
see, and the problem is that sometimes there are intervening law changes and they have adverse effects. So if you grandfathered your project in, if you wipe them out with an automatic, termination, then he loses his grandfathering status.
Right.
I mean, we've had that where, because I think we may end up with this, some type of prevailing wage and we grandfathered our prior project, so that would end up killing the project.
Right, right.
So probably we should do, 2 years and then give him a 30-day notice where he's got to re-up and tell us something like that. That may be kind of where you want to go.
That's fine with me.
You go with that, Renee?
Yeah, that's fine, I just thought it was time to have it, we've never really had the issue, because usually projects come in, they're ready to go, they move forward through the
So is this
process.
something we can
Is,
motion on?
well, can I just ask a follow-up question, Paul? So you were talking about, we always have the right to
Revoke.
to revoke. Might it be as simple as including new language in any kind of an agreement that I'm making this up, compels an annual report or something, if there's been no action, to then get to some sort of revocation as opposed to doing that?
We have a termination policy and recapture.
They're already in the.
Yeah, but what we could do in the agreement, because most times, you don't expect people to get approval and then
And
lapse.
do nothing,
Yeah.
right?
So I think what we should do is just,
We can terminate, we better be terminating with cause, a solid cause, or we put ourselves in a really bad
Correct.
position.
that's why I'm saying, I think we should just do it that they have 2 years, we'll send the notice. And then, if they don't respond, then we can, go from there. Put the ball on them.
Yeah, and I like Maggie's idea, let's make it that they've got to do, let's make it so in our agreements, they gotta do like semi-annual reports.
Status reports or
Status
something,
reports.
where they are in their project, so.
Sometimes it's like pulling teeth, and it drives me, infuriates me.
Of course.
You've been pushing me, and then all of a sudden you go underground, and now you're acting like I'm bugging you when I wanna know what's going on, where's the status?
Well, I agree. So like right now we have, what is it, 3 Point Solar? What the hell? Why haven't you closed? I mean,
You can't give me a good answer yet.
Yeah,
So I
and then-
looked at your email from them.
so what I'm gonna do is just send a notice saying, guys, we have new policy change. You have to do something and that will get it going. So
So is this
I'll,
something we get formally?
Yeah, so let us draft up something, and let us draft up something along those lines, and then we'll put, it won't be long policy, just stream it forward. But I also like the idea of putting some kind of reporting requirement after the approval date, between the approval date and the execution date of the
yeah, because we're
contract.
not gonna sit here and take it, it's ridiculous.
And then they should be forced.
Oh, and like the Village of Kutzaki Municipal Solar, the guy had worked on a project to sell it, deal fell out. That tells you that this, people don't know where money is really going. There's a lot of capital out there. And then it's the divide between the haves and have-nots is getting bigger, I think. I don't know where this ends up. I mean, I don't know about you guys. Are you having trouble getting employees? I mean, it's,
Yeah, the whole market is
Are you
upside
kidding
down
me?
now. and
Right.
Oh, my God.
yeah, I
You
think
gotta be kidding me.
this thing's
Give them
gonna,
$300 a week to stay home.
Yeah.
People think that's a small amount of money. They don't realize that people have multiple income streams.
Right.
And that's just a piece of it, and that's a piece of it that'll just make them certain types of
And at the same
business.
time, we have demand through the roof.
this
Oh,
thing's
yeah.
not over with. And there's gonna be a bad story to it at some point here because, if people don't wanna work, I can't get employees.
But as Renee was saying, we actually were seeing this even before this.
Correct.
This has just exacerbated it.
But there's,
And you've seen it, and it's.
but no one's bringing it to an end. That's the problem.
Well, there's an effort to spare every person from every pain, so there's no, they don't want to ever cut off the gravy once it starts, so it,
Yeah, well, that extension was totally bananas.
absolutely.
That's some decision was made in the room with nobody that had any stake in
Yeah,
having seasoned employees. I can
can't
tell you
keep
that.
throwing money at people, no doubt.
It'd be interesting to see, because like I said, I think if it went away, if the unemployment add-on went away tomorrow, I don't think the employment problem's gonna go away.
Oh,
I
no.
think we're just down to the dregs and it is what it is now, so anyway, we're not gonna solve that.
So-
So on the policy, we'll draft something up and, have the board formally adopt it. Those are the key tenets, we'll look at like a two-year approval and, routine reports in between, doing that. And something, something effective, failure to file reports could lead to termination of the, that way it gives us cause to terminate if we have to with that. I try to be as much as understanding with these guys as possible, but part of me also says, is there a responsibility on our part when we look at a project in light of today's conditions and the conditions aren't necessarily the same 4 years from now? Should they be reevaluated at that point? Because it drags so long. And that will give us the ability, and maybe the threat of having to pay another application fee out will move some of these people along.
And I think the threat is really, you're gonna be stuck to it with maybe a prevailing wage, I mean, like the solar thing, the state is trying to figure out the uniform method of how to value these things, and it's a disaster. No one knows how to value the present value of these payments, it's, and you figure the state's gonna do anything intelligent?
Well, I was jumping the gun a little bit, but NYSERDA is having a variety of different webinars, and they have a webinar coming up on the taxing of battery storage and the variety of the energy things. And, it's intended perhaps not for people like us, although I'm going to take it, but it's interesting because how do you value a battery storage, place should one happen, in our county? How do you do some of these pipeline, it's clearly the discussion point, and then how do you accrue a benefit to them? When you're trying to think about all these overlaying policies, it's a very different world. It's sort of like e-commerce, right? It was the next greatest thing, and now you're realizing it is, but it just shifts the whole method by which communities, derive their revenue.
So I get hit on both sides because I have a college that's a developer in Cornell, and I have, the taxing authorities. And the biggest issue is, how do you depreciate the panels, if at all? Because a regular building, you don't get to depreciate those. And then, because that's your plant being wiped out over a period of time. And the developers think that the government's gonna give them a break, and it's all this tension and fighting. And the problem is the referee being NYSERDA and tax. I don't think they have the skill set to understand it.
I think they have the theoretical and philosophical. I don't think that they have the practical. When you get into a community, when these are the geographies and this is, what it means.
See, I asked that kid from the village of Coxsackie, what's the cap rate? What are you selling this cash flow at? Because that's the whole thing. And I bet it's about a 5 cap. I mean, I bet it's low. Because, there's so much money looking for a return out there.
Because the interest rates are so low, so there's nowhere for return, there's nowhere for yield anymore.
I mean, I just tried an appeal with a cap rate case on low-income housing in Crapping Cove. The court said 4%. It was half of treasuries. What it's on the equity we took. Makes no sense. So you figure you're gonna have the state figure this out for you? Sorry,
You know what they're gonna figure out, screw us.
I mean, I'm at the end of my career at this point, so I know too much.
You wait and see when they publish the discount rate, what's gonna happen with these things, they're gonna go.
I mean, have you looked at what your CDs roll at? It's 10 basis points.
Yeah.
I mean, it tells you we have a problem. And when is this, at some point, it's gonna hit the road. I don't know, just
We'll pick up the people, at least we're on solid ground as we can be here, that's my concerns with that, but. All right, then just moving right down through the priority projects. So with Broad Street Bagel, Paul circled back around again. He is interested, he's one who also owns the Paul's Pizza Plaza,
Right.
okay? So just started with the planning board now to put an expansion on that building, and so he's gonna try to do both of these projects at one time. So I did execute, was actually his wife is executed, because it's Broadway Bagel, Broad Street Bagel, and Broadway Bagel is in his wife's name, that company there. There is some past history with him and Paul on something. He called me last week, he was all concerned, I said, well, look, we're not swapping attorneys up, I said, this is just, a straightforward transaction.
From my perspective, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I said, any attorney, I said, so he was gonna check with his attorney, then he got back with me and said, yeah, it's okay. I said, well, it's gotta be okay, because that's the only way we're working, that's the only way it's gonna work.
I have a case where I'm representing a party that he sued, we won, and now it's going to the appellate division. You know, it's, if anyone wants more disclosure, I'll write up. Disclosure, it's not an issue to me.
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue, I don't think it's an issue here.
He just
Anyway,
got wiped out.
so he's looking to do so this would be the 4-acre site right in front of Empire Merchants North, right across from Strategic Trailer Park. You got Caulkberg Business Park, so you look at the driveway to Caulkberg, you get a property on the right-hand side. He wanted to take a piece off the front of the other piece, and I told him no. I didn't want to subdivide up that 14-acre piece any further, or it had to be something a little higher value or something like, so he said, all right, I'll take the other piece, so. Anyway, the options are same deal we've been doing with everybody else, 6 months free, 6 months at 5,000. And hopefully he can get it going. Probably we'll have an application for incentives, because this will be primarily a wholesale bakery, there'll be a little retail component. But I think the retail component's small enough that we can get past the retail prohibition, it's not a large part of it. I don't know how many jobs, it's not humongous, but it'd be a good fit for up there, so.
How big of a building is he putting in?
Don't hold me to this, Dan, but it's not as big as thing, probably 24,000, I think, is the number sticks in my head. And I really haven't gotten that far along with him on the details, but I want to say, I think he said 24,000. Primarily wholesale paper.
Probably about a dozen people.
Yeah. So the business is going, I gotta give him credit for it, he makes excellent bagels, he's dropped some off, they're really freaking good, so.
Oh, they're good.
They're good. So we'll do well there.
Fatten you right up.
I need to get, I'm skating away here. So on
I could give him a few pounds.
exit 21 East, so we're finally making progress with the New York State Thruway. We haven't had a meeting in person since all this transpired. As you know, we paid for an appraisal back last fall, and then we paid for the second appraisal. December 3rd, we sent the check. I waited through the holidays, figuring, it is what it is. About the 15th of January, I start trying to outreach, and it's crickets. I'm getting nothing from the Thruway. They're not answering emails, they're not answering phone calls, they're not doing nothing.
What was the second appraisal? How did that,
I have no idea. So first of all, it doesn't look like they commissioned it, the other guy. And second of all, they won't share them with us. That's the way policy. They won't share that. They'll just come and give us a number. And if we don't like it, we'll have to go pay for another appraisal on that. But so what it seems has happened, I'm dealing with this guy, Rick Matters, and actually Paul knows him and another.
He's on the town board of East Greenbush.
And I really didn't think Rick was the issue, other the fact that he's low as molasses, but as a long story turned out, they came into his office like on January 15th, cleared all his files out, and moved all the land disposal to the general counsel's office, okay? And so I called Paul. Well, good news for us is that the general counsel happens to be Paul's college roommate from law school. So at least we have a personal relationship there. Yeah. And so since then, they have hired somebody. I've been getting regular emails. I feel bad for the guy. He's like, we have nothing, can you send me the original application? Can you, I've been going back and sending them 3-year-old paperwork on it, poor kid. But no, Brian, that's when I asked them, they will not share the appraisals, which I think is pretty, I don't know why. They won't share the appraisals. He said, I can't share the appraisals, but I can give you a list of the comps that were used.
All right, well, when we get there, I spoke to the guy. I tried to pull it from the death.
I get a general idea where it's at. My initial thought with this was that we can get some benefit for the thruway with access for sewer and water, and that we should negotiate on the sale price. I'm past that point, because I'm so afraid now that if we try to open up on a negotiation, where I'm afraid we'll be another 2-3 years, just try to knock a couple up, and I'll knock $100,000 off the sale price. So I budgeted $750. We had an appraisal in 19 on 2 acres on our side. A theoretical to carve out 2 acres on the Quality Inn. That was about $840 for those 2 acres. I do know Rick Matters told me that the first appraisal was over $600. I don't know whether that means $699 or $601, but it's over $600, which okay, because I figured it budget like in the budget like we approved for $750 for the acquisition. So,
but how do they get to that value if essentially the land is somewhat landlocked? Unless they have access the other way, or does
their land is not landlocked. Actually, really, when you get down to it, our land is not locked.
Okay, so then it's got value. Okay.
The quality in parcels, yeah, because don't forget that right, it surrounds us on all 3 sides, and even like half the distance from here to the road in front, between 23 and our parcel is throughway land. This is why I started it on, because I didn't want everybody having to have all these permits all the time.
Yeah.
You know, we own it and it's good to go. So anyway, we are finally making some progress on that. I've been meeting with so I don't know if we brought this up last board meeting or not, but we've been having a conversation with the hospital about relocating them over to the east side.
Mm.
Their budget costs came in, which didn't surprise me. Their civil costs in particular are through the roof. But if you know that site we have, it's flat and then drops right off and then flattens off again. And it's quite an elevation change in there. And all you gotta do is scratch your fingernail and you're at bedrock there. So it's monster rock. They were gonna build 2-story building, part in the hill, part on top. And it just, the costs were just out of control. So he contacted me. Would you reduce the option to 4 acres instead of 8? We're gonna build a smaller facility. And that's when I said, look, let's talk about relocating you before we talk about going smaller. So where we are right now, I've met with the county once, because you know, they're our partners on this. And the county and myself are meeting with the hospital on Monday. So I hope we get some definitive answer out of them so we can get moving forward with the hospital on an option on that Quality Inn site. But then between Stewart's and Quality Inn would fill out the Stewart's and Quality Inn, what am I thinking of? And the hospital would completely fill out that.
But you couldn't get 8 acres over there, right?
No, but they can get in on about, what they're doing is 2-story. They went to 1-story, but they've got it fitting in. They actually got the building up.
How big is that parcel on the east side that you would be looking at? For that?
They'd be probably right about 5 acres. And now, don't forget, they didn't need much. Don't forget that when they first came to us was 4, and then it got pushed out to 8. But don't forget, they only wanted about 6, and I made them take the other 2 acres in the back. That was going to be kind of not useless. It was going to be useless to us. So they were actually buying more land than they needed on that deal. So they right now they've got a site plan. I told them don't spend a ton of money, just see if your footprint will fit in there, and it will. And so we'll see what the county's feelings are on it. I would tell you, I don't know about legislators, but with the professional staff, everybody seems to be like, let's just get some money and get the hell out, you know? Yeah. And of course, between us, I always gotta get reminded that Ed was gonna get $1 million for the property, and I'm like, we never would have saw that $1 million for that property, ever. In rubies, I think, right?
Yeah, no, you mean,
The ladies is rubles.
Yeah, rubles, I'm sorry. I haven't.
Rubies would work.
So that's, and so the other conversation we've had as of last week with the county is them possibly stepping up and helping with the natural gas line as part of the incentive money they've gotten, from the feds. The county got about $9 million, and part of it's got to go into infrastructure. And so Sean threw that on the table. I'm going to follow through on that and see if we can pursue getting them that. I'd like to get them to pick up a good piece of it. That would be helpful on that. So, okay, that's it on the east side. So on the west side, we're talking about. So the west side, here's sort of the dilemma, or to put forth in front of the board. I've shown the site to Loves, and they're interested. The travel plaza. They came around. No absolute positive yet, but they've already been to the site multiple times without me, and they're working with Jack Kelly. Jack from Saratoga, the economic developer.
yeah,
He's working with them on that.
good.
I thought they
So-
said it was too far from the exit.
Yeah, I got the email. I saved that email from the
How many
real estate.
sites are there that are that close?
I know, I thought it was like.
You can throw a rock at it, you can throw a rock at it, that's not far.
Plus the
Yeah.
signage from the throughway.
Yeah, visibility.
Yeah.
So here's what really happened with that, is I was talking to the real estate director directly from Loves through LinkedIn. I met him. He don't do no real estate work, The bottom line is there's a few teams of people like this Scannell who does a lot of stuff for Amazon. They're the ones that go out, and that's who I met with these people. They were not directly from Loves, because I think the guy just blew me off at the time. Because I kept that email, because I said, nobody's ever gonna believe this. So I still have that. So the dilemma comes out is first of all, the site is not completely zoned for it, so there would have to be a zoning change or a variance on a portion of the site. I was a little surprised, maybe not, but, Sean's, I mentioned to him when we were in the meeting, his reaction was, I don't want to say negative, but well, I guess it was a little negative. The point more like was, how's that gonna go over, considering all the work we've done with Camp Town and all the rest of the people there? So,
Would it have a hotel component?
No.
So it's restaurant,
it would be your typical love.
Fuel.
Big,
Yeah, gas stops, I don't.
They're,
some convenience stores.
Yeah.
Pretty much be like the one they built over there on 90. And,
they're nice truck stops. I mean, they're clean and
They're
they're,
real truck stops.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
They are designed to be truck stops,
Yeah.
which,
But believe it or not, they do.
And which parcel were they interested in?
On, where, on the west
West
side,
side,
across
wow.
from, basically more or less across from Camp Town.
Camptown, yeah.
So I just throw that question out is,
They would be down in there, wouldn't they?
they need the visibility up in the front part
Where the houses
for the,
were, kind of,
yeah.
Is there
kind of
room up
towards
in
the
there
front
for
part.
that?
Excuse me?
It takes a lot of room.
They've been, again, that's my point, but they've been looking at the site a few times, they think they can make it work.
We'll have to see what that
I
looks
mean, we
like.
haven't talked any price, or we haven't gotten, to that point or not.
that's a lot of big truck traffic.
It
right
is
in
coming
there.
across that bridge.
Yeah.
So, I just put it on the table because, my thoughts, and this was sort of where Sean's point was too, is, well, how is that, is that sort of contrary to what you've already been doing in that area, trying to get people to build nice hotels and put investments in? So part of me says, like, if I just invested 10 million across the street and someone put a truck stop in across the street. But on the other end, so it just, this is one I said, I'm gonna bring this one back to my board. This is what we have a board of directors for. This is exactly the kind of hard questions.
I mean, all right, so I'm not that familiar with truck stops, but, is there idling? What are they, I think that's the
Yeah.
stuff you've
Yeah,
got.
there is.
You've got to talk to people about what it is. And then decide.
I know what they are, I'm in and out of them all the time. There are a lot of big traffic, a lot of lights, a lot of
now
numbers.
you do have a throughway that is right there as well.
Makes a lot of road noise also, so
Yeah,
let's,
right.
So it's not an inappropriate place, it's our neighbor there that just spent a couple million is the question of, is that,
I mean, how does the ambient noise associated with that type of facility compare to what the road noise is from the throughway? I mean, that's their first question. And I don't know.
It's that and the general impression from a tourism standpoint too. You want to go to this country exit and where there's a camp, and next thing you know, you find yourself in the middle of a truck stop.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a valid thing to
I haven't
discuss.
talked to the town yet, I don't know how the town would receive it or not.
and what
Let's
is
Put
the
10 million in.
Camp
I wouldn't be
Town's,
thrilled with that.
what was their
Yeah,
model
I
there,
know.
what were their, I mean, they obviously, they're making
pissed at us.
campgrounds up on it, we just did a job there.
Think anyone else in-
Yeah.
They got a lot of work going down there.
What's that?
There's a lot of work going on.
Yeah.
But they're leaving those little,
Oh, okay.
all the little cabins are staying and they are doing work behind
It's
them,
gonna be a
yeah.
hotel in front, right? I mean, that's their business model,
Right.
is to rent people single nights.
Right,
Because, I'm just throwing it out there, it might not be totally unfriendly to them, because when you have a lot of people parked across the street or coming in off that exit, 'cause it won't be just trucks, it will be other, possible
Right.
fuelers. They may need a place to stay for the night as well.
well, I was just gonna say, usually those truck stops have the big things where people spend the night, right? They,
Usually Loves, they'll have
yeah,
sleepover spots for some of the trucks. Sometimes you'll see campers, people with RVs.
'Cause, when I just went down to Florida, we stayed a night at an RV place right off of 95. And it was a really nice place. 95 was right there. You actually didn't know it was there. I was surprised that you couldn't even tell it was there. And you go out to the end of the road, there's a truck stop. But it was tucked in there, and it didn't, it didn't seem to conflict. I was surprised. So that's why I'm just wondering what I know the camping model is the camping model, but that's kind of set back. But in that front end where the hotel is it possible?
Well, I
to
think
help
like
some-
at Dan's point too, or Freddie's, or maybe it's not just necessarily the activity, but it's gonna change the traffic patterns
Absolutely, yeah.
substantially between that two-way entrance and the other side of that
that
bridge.
road's underserved, but What kind of zone change do they need? Let's start with that. I think that's where that's where you're gonna flush this thing out.
Yeah, the back half is rural residential agriculture, so there's nothing allowed. The front half is highway commercial, which does have service stations.
So
which
can
is
they-
the closest thing I can find in there.
Can they get their design? So, I mean, and again,
No, they can't get all of the 600 foot.
okay, so then, yeah.
No, it's,
All right, so-
no question, they gotta go back. And
All right, so what's the chances of them getting a zone change and then the subsequent lawsuit, for an Article 78, because someone's gonna be pissed off about it, at some point, I mean, right? I mean,
Oh, camp people are
I
gonna
think.
Right.
flip out, I mean,
Well,
if I was,
people
in
who
their
are
boots, yeah.
environmentally conscious about increased truck traffic and the fumes and, especially if you're trying to create like a tourism end of things.
Right.
On the other hand, I would imagine that the sales tax generated from sales
That's
on
pretty
fuel is gonna generate a whole lot of.
You're kind of, what do you think?
Wow.
You spend 10 million on
Wow.
that camp, what do you feel about that? Well, it depends on, you'd have to ask them, what their business model, if they're, that's a good point about the overnight stays. I mean, that might be.
Yeah, but they're-
I mean, it may help them.
I can absolutely tell you, their business model is not, hey, I'm tired, I wanna get off the road, get a seat down the road again. They're looking to draw city people up here for that.
They
Right.
come up specifically to stay in that
Right,
place.
glamping, camping.
yeah, and their impression when they get off that exit, do we want it to be, this is a gas station exit, or is it,
Is that directly?
tourism, this is, welcome to
Sort
the
of,
Yeah.
Right.
But what about the view shed of it? Because, it's down in a hole, that site is a little down.
Right.
Is there any way you can, I mean, obviously, you got berming and all that stuff, but how does it, I mean, someone's gotta have some idea what it's gonna look like.
Well, was it right across, is that right by?
Not directly.
That's
Down a little
directly across,
further?
yeah.
let's break out that map.
I think it's a little further down and up,
Do we have any sense as to whether, where Stewart's might be?
That's the other side of the bridge.
Right, I know it's the other side of the
Yeah.
bridge, but I'm thinking about like the travel plaza, the food, it too has gas.
Yeah.
Not conflict as much as, do we already have a saturation, do we have a gas saturation point, if you will, as opposed to attracting
The
truckers?
truck fueling is a little different than like because they can't fuel at Stewart's, they gotta go down to, and a lot of those places have a facility beyond just fueling, they have a restaurant component and there's sometimes showers and other things.
Okay, well,
I will say on the sales tax, which I was a little surprised, because I said to Sean, it's about $1.5 million a year, and he's like, yeah, that's money, but you're gonna, and I forgot what he said, and I didn't understand, I said, well, explain to somebody, he goes, well, it's kind of like farting in church. I said, now I know what you're trying to say.
Well, the only other thing I'd say, Renee, we need to think of is, okay, so what are the other alternatives that go there, and what is that gonna look like? Everything's gonna look like something there, whether it's that, or what is the other thing? Is it a warehouse, or is it a?
well, we had a GEIS with all the different,
Right,
alternatives.
right.
And, I mean, we're entitled to make, money on this profit, on the property, but the key thing is that we spent a lot of money on acquiring the property and then all the extensions for the utilities. All right, so.
What's your thoughts, Ben?
It's down in a hole, you can't even see it from the road. I know the property well, I've done all the work right around there for the Carls and, plus we did work down there, it's all rock.
Right, but they won't do it with all the way down the hole. The building, the main building.
building,
is up,
be in the
and
front.
the main gas pumps have to be right up on 23.
Entrance has to be there.
And when you sit up by Carl's, you look right down, you look right down into that.
Yeah.
It just, you do look right down into that property.
So they're gonna need more land than, for one of them, the Loves that I know of, they take up like 15 acres.
Yeah, they're in that 12 to 15, which is, they can get it out of there.
maybe they ought to get a spur right off the thruway, now that
No,
we're
they're gonna
easy
do a
past
whole
tolling,
stretch.
et cetera, right, coming south, and just in and out.
I don't know the site well enough. 15 acres is a good patch of land. That's, they're big. I mean, these guys gotta maneuver around in there, that they need a lot of space. It doesn't sound like an ideal spot.
Parking is occurring in the back or down in that hole.
I mean, I've seen the truck stops that they are kind of like that, where you go in and then it's all the way down in, and they got
Yeah.
trucks all the way,
Yep.
you're right, Dan, they need a lot of room, so they use it all, but that, they're saying the front, The business end of it's gonna be up front.
Sure,
That's
yeah,
clean.
yeah.
Yeah.
Trucks aren't, they're not like they used to be either. They won't let them idle.
That's true.
I think they're 3-minute, 4-minute idle, that's it.
You can't leave them idling all night, because they'll shut off, actually.
Those days are long gone.
Uh,
Plus our new ones are quiet.
So if you, I don't know the site, so if you drop down in, it's not that visible when they're.
No, not to the road. From the thruway, you can see it.
Okay, I'm gonna repeat myself again. The main building has to be on.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
no, wait, as far as not seeing it is not an option here.
No, but what I've seen with like Love's and some of these big truck stops, they'll have the main retail component,
Yeah.
but the fueling stations usually are in the back, separate, where the pumps are.
Yeah. and they-
So where the trucks, they'll have multiple pump spots.
Yeah.
The building is just
I think,
food
I
and.
think a diesel island
Yeah.
for the trucks in the back works.
Yeah.
But my 90%, believe it or not, 50% of the volume is cars,
Right.
you know?
Yeah,
It surprised me a little bit.
Stewart's is gonna love that.
Is that life for them?
That's another,
Yeah.
that's another, so
Yeah.
that's.
Well, if they have a little restaurant, if they have all that sort of
I'm
stuff.
familiar with a couple of them, Perkins,
So he says.
Pancake and
The
Steakhouse.
Right.
Rite Aid, CVS, lots of
Any
folks.
chance they give us a
Play off
better
of each
idea
other.
of what they actually.
I think we let it play out a little more and maybe see a site plan or something.
Yeah, well, we're not gonna spend any money on it without some correction.
I was just there a couple days ago, and
Yeah.
Renee, from Camptown, looking out the front door, right? I don't think you're gonna see it. It's gonna be
You got that
down,
hill, we can't put, you're looking down.
But you're at a high spot, you're looking down into that property. Trust me, you can see down into that.
You can see
property,
down into
all the way
that?
down into that property.
Yeah.
It's a
The
community
cabins
thing.
are up on the.
oh, up in the
Up on there,
cabins,
you can see
yeah.
it. We wouldn't even, you know, that's why
That's
we're having
another
a
fight,
conversation,
right?
because even myself, I'm like, well, this is gonna be really right in your face, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, that's a big consideration. These people are spending a lot of money and the Instagram is I'm in my nice rustic cabin looking over a truck stop.
When's the hotel business coming back? You know, when's the hotel business gonna start revving up?
You're in.
That's pretty solid, right?
New bills?
I'm just thinking about people coming in looking for a place to put something, you know, I mean, I hate to cut off our nose to spite our face.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we gotta look at the revenue component of it, it's certainly one thing, and,
Yeah.
we gotta look at it all, but, yeah.
Well,
Yes,
and
please.
they're really just, they're
Thank
looking for, to acquire the land, right? They're not looking for,
No, they're-
they'll be all in for everything?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tourism destination.
Uh-huh. Well, I guess, in this modern era, anything.
Rating all in.
Meaning they want
Benefits.
incentives, et cetera. They're not like in
I don't see
Ferguson.
incentives.
Right, there's just a land-
I didn't think we could do incentives on
Yeah, I think it's
it.
not.
In fact, the ones over in Skodak, or no, that's the Skodak, Canaan, is that Canaan?
That's, yeah.
They're totally no, there was no.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we can. I know, look, I'm a bullshit artist, but even I can't bullshit enough to say that's a destination retail. I mean, though it does technically probably meet the,
Yeah.
what's it, 75% of business from.
Yeah, that's,
So it really does, by law, technically.
yeah.
Okay, so we seem to be all over the place on this.
Yeah.
Well, I think-
Y'all said anything extra?
I'm glad we resolved that for you.
I think, Renee, in my opinion, that we gotta keep an open mind on it and look at the revenue side of it, and then we gotta look at across the street too. But I don't think the sole decision to be what was going across the street, because our intention all along has been to do something with that property. You know, we faced this with Ferguson, with that site there, we had neighbors that were pissed off, and
Yeah, they got
hey,
over it.
we've had this 100 acres, our intention always has been to build something.
But, you know, partly back to Brian's point, then the conversation with the county in consideration of moving CMH, we have had multiple discussions about the fact that that would be land left at the IDA property, left for a future hotel when the things get back. The gas station goes and that
It's
goes.
done,
right?
You know, it's done, there's no, you know, that's the only one, that's the only, you know, Benny knows this, there's only that one eastern site that's really well developable. The rest, housing up on the hill, some of that stuff, yes, maybe okay, but only got one shot for something halfway decent on the other side over there.
So Renee, where is this as far as the next steps, or are they gonna?
They're waiting, they're waiting for me to give them some indication as to whether we're interested in selling.
Well, I think one thing would help is if they could send a little mock-up of what this
Right.
thing would look like. Because
Yeah.
right now, we're just trying to imagine
what goes where.
I still think, when you go to the town and then you deal with, you know, a zone change, that's where this road is gonna meet the road, and that's where all the stuff is gonna come
They're gonna
out.
come out.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, if the board isn't gonna be approving it, this thing's not going anywhere,
Right. That's true.
right? I mean, right? I think that's the reality.
At some point, you have to ask yourself,
Do you think?
what was the wisdom of building a camp town rustic place right near a busy exit versus building it in a more remote, you know, environment where it's more conducive to that kind of getaway?
What does the community's comprehensive plan say about the,
Right.
that intersection? I mean,
Yeah.
look, it's a prime developable site for our community.
Yeah.
But I just think when rubber meets the
So
road,
like the Camptown thing, Daniel, that was a renovation of an existing.
Yeah, I get
That
it.
was there.
I get it. And, you know, we're kind of trying to be sensitive to their development, but was that, you know?
Well, to the,
what did
and
they
also
expect
to the
was gonna
overall
happen?
mission of the
You know,
town.
yeah.
Right.
We were gonna do something.
I'm kind of playing the other side of
Yeah,
it
no, I
now,
think-
so, I mean, I
it's
think
fair to
that,
look at both.
Yeah.
That property is right along the thruway. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
unusual
Yeah.
to see a truck stop right alongside a thruway.
yeah, along with other more
Yeah.
industrial related, but, I agree, I think it's gotta go to the town and,
I just think
then they're
that's
gonna
where-
come out of the woodwork and people's opinions.
yeah, if they don't vote,
hotel site.
Yeah.
I'd tell them when they're any problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's ideal, sure. I mean, I think that was our intention all along,
Renee, do you
more
think
hotel
that
related.
the zoning change would be a problem with the town?
Most likely.
Yeah.
So we'll discuss this for.
So I think what's gonna happen is
Yeah.
gonna raise a
It's not,
shitstorm.
it's really not up to us that's really gonna decide if they have to get a zone change.
I would say to Loves, go talk to the town.
Yeah.
What's your chances of getting a zone change?
Right.
And
Yeah,
that way,
Yeah, I put it back on them, because I don't really.
you don't wanna be the guy leading the charge on that.
Because if I'm the town, I'm saying, it's a truck stop right alongside the thruway. What else, what was the other option of something going there? What?
But it forces them to go back and look at their comprehensive plan and their
Right, yeah.
zoning and just
Right.
say, but the truth is, anybody who comes in for that may need a zoning change on that parcel.
Yeah, with the
Right.
back 600 feet.
It's
That's right.
And they have,
Something's gonna be there.
There are
Some,
some
you know.
commercial uses and stuff like that are allowed in the RA, but, definitely service stations.
it sounds like the zoning is not right, but that's, you know, that's for them
Well, we
to
have the same
decide.
problem, you know, the same issues on the quality insight too.
Yep.
Because just that little tiny back corner's an RA, you know, so the intent at some point would have been to maybe go to they have the IDA go and say, look, can we get these rezoned in the absence of a specific project that might piss everybody off? Say, look, you know, can you bring the whole parcel in? And I always thought it made a good argument for us to do that, because actually in Carl's case, we'd only rezone one parcel, the other 7 are in the.
What did they do with the Home Depot? Because that's gotta have more than 600 feet in on commercial.
That was built before they redid their last comprehensive plan and last zoning in there on that.
I mean, look, the 600 feet, it seems to be wrong for that location, from what I'm hearing.
I'm good with you, I think it's a good suggestion, let's say, look,
Too restrictive.
you need to go and have a conversation with the town separately, the IDA's not gonna go to the town on a zoning change for you. You guys wanna look at it, then,
I think that's the way to go, because, I mean, we're gonna get our head kicked in if we're the leader of it.
yeah, well, and so,
We will.
well, you know.
But it also opens up the conversation to the town
What do we do?
as to, on all of the parcels that are designated that way, so, you know, there'd be
Again, with
inconsistent.
some other
Anybody.
scenario.
That's right,
Right.
yep.
I think they're two separate issues. I think we have to go in and get that thing zoned as best as possible for commercial uses.
Right.
The truck stop, that's on them.
Right.
You know,
But, you know, don't forget, everything we were targeting towards here, attractions and all that, are allowed in RA. So the zoning wasn't as much of an issue. We had the commercial up front, the back allowed for attractions, campgrounds, housing, all the other things we talked about in the seeker. So the zoning change wasn't as quite as critical, but I agree, if we're gonna go do that, and I think we should advance it, we should do it in the absence of a specific project that's, you know, got everybody fired up.
yeah, I mean, because then, yeah, see, at least this way it can look like the economic developer's trying to deal with this site to get a decent commercial mix out there.
And I've tried to talk a couple of these communities now into considering, adopting some PUD or PDD laws, planned unit development or planned district development. It just goes right over their heads. It would be great, Kasaki has it, does have PDDs and PUDs, but this thing is I think it's the only town that might have it.
Yeah, Athens as the village, they have cluster development. They debated and didn't go the PUD way because people really, just didn't count to it. But now what's happening is what's happening here is that all of a sudden people want to just zone the one parcel because they want to keep whatever the developer is seeking to do out. So the village board's just gone amok with all sorts of little, we have a timber harvesting law from Hunter that they're gonna do, so the guy can't clear his property. I mean, it's.
Village will have to do timber, obviously.
Typical.
All right, so I think.
I'm one of non-native
we're
trees.
square on that. I will also do a call to the town supervisor, just feel him out a little bit myself. But I'm gonna basically go back and say, look, we're still listening, we're open, but you need to go and have a conversation with the town as to how this would be received and whether they would do the zoning change for you or not.
Right.
And then it keeps us out of it. If it goes away, it goes away. Anyway, I'd like to, at the end of the meeting, I would like to make a recommendation that we do an executive session on a legal matter that's sort of half-assed associated with this, but we'll leave it to the very end of the meeting if it's all right for everybody. So just ripping down through things then, Champlain Hudson Power Express, thank you for everybody taking some time and reviewing that and getting back to me. I'm in the process now, I've already met with most of the time, I still gotta meet with Village Catskill and the Village of Kasaki. But everybody else so far, very happy, especially when they see that community host fee. If you remember, we took the total dollar amount, took 30% off the top, share that with the towns and villages as a long-term community host fee, and then just split the other 70 up. Clearly I can anticipate that the school districts may not be happy. There is no host community benefit for them. But in the case of Kasaki Athens, for example, here, I figure Kasaki Athens, right? So I think I told you the railroad all in is paying like $3.29 or something in that neighborhood. All in, everybody, every school, every town, everything. So at best, Kasaki might be making 50, if that. I don't know if they're close to that, but let's say 50. They're going to get 600,000 the first year in their pilot. No impact on school, no impact on nothing. 600,000. So I'm sure I'll hear some squawking from those, but quite frankly, I've got the backbone to say this is a good deal. This is it. You're taking it. Now with the host community fee. What I've been telling all the town supervisors is that we will draft a set of guidance, but I will circle back to all of them for input into that. The idea is not looking to approve projects, once you get that fund under the guidelines, we're not gonna name it yet. Okay, but in some cases, I'm even thinking that will allow them to go back, like think Kasaki, they just built a brand new municipal hall 2 years ago. So instead of them, finding some other big capital project, I'm thinking like, take up to 25% of your fund can be used on debt for a 5-year or less old capital project that would normally been funded. So everybody's really happy about all that stuff right now. I'm anticipating, and everybody should be well aware, but I'm anticipating that the county won't necessarily be happy because they're not getting a piece of that fee. The way it's written up, the pilot on the sales tax exemption, just like we did with the mountains, 25% back to us at the close of the project and on final accounting. That goes into our parks account for extending our business, being able to do business parks. And then 25% on the mortgage recording tax, which goes back to the county, about $500,000 for their economic development fund. I have to say, I gotta give the county credit. They started that fund with that $1 million that we didn't do 10 years ago. And they put that into an economic, they still have money in that account. They've been spending very smartly out of that account.
Good.
I really have to give them credit. They did the right thing, set it aside, they've been using it for, economic development type stuff. So, I don't, just again, there's where we're probably gonna hear some feedback. I have not briefed the county, they will be the last. I mean, strategically, I figured best to get all your friends in line and then go see your own friendlies. The schools will be my last ones around too. And the host community fee is, based on the justification here that there is no long-term employment on this project. nor is there any indirect in the future. There's no indirect, there's no induced, there's no secondary impacts from this project over time, which of course we count on. You know, you bring a Ferguson in, that brings employees, they spend paychecks, there's none of that. So to offset that, this is hence the host community fee. Now, one of the things I've been concerned about is what with this new real property tax law, while they do not have transmission in there now, it's solar and wind. It's only gonna take another of a year. If Champlain Hudson goes in, or one of these power lines goes in and says, look, we can't get our pilots favorable, they're all, you know, they're just gonna roll it right in. They're gonna end up rolling battery storage, they're gonna end up rolling all this stuff into that law. You agree?
I think these guys have their act together. I think they've talked to a lot of people. I mean, I think they did. Yeah, I mean, it's a long
Yeah, no,
project.
they're prepared, and their offer, don't be wrong, their offer was actually pretty good for, we don't normally get,
Yeah.
you know, normally they're lowball us. But what we did is we asked for 10%, which I thought was reasonable over their numbers. Shame on them, you know, there's no way in hell they came in with the best number, we all know that. Now, 10% was reasonable, and they didn't see the bulk out yet. I haven't sent them the formal incentive letter yet. I wanted to wait till we had this meeting, works out mostly all year. Now, we do have to do public hearings. Paul and I are of the opinion we have to do 4. I'm wondering if we can get away with doing those digitally,
I think right now you can,
right,
right?
as of right now. And if we do them digitally, how does that work? We gotta do a digital streaming live from each municipal?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the one good thing about Zoom. And if it also allows a lot of people to participate, so,
Right.
you know, which is.
But if that's the case, then I probably wouldn't do them digital, because what a pain in the neck to,
Go set
we
up.
barely get the Zoom room to work when it's set up here.
But what you do is, you know, having done many legislative sessions now for a year plus, you know, the people have to sign up for testimony. And most people are like kind of given a time slot, if you will, because it's a public hearing. It's not a public response thing. It's you know, you want to put your comments, you know, you get that ahead of time, you zoom them in, you master the mute button, because it's not a give and take, right? It's a public hearing to take public commentary, right?
No, I understand that stuff, but physically bringing the electronic equipment into each taxing, here's fine, really, because we can do it out of here. But if we gotta go, so we have to do one in each town, which means we
Right.
have to get Zoom set up in Baltimore.
Well, or it would not surprise me, right, laptop, I mean, it's, the laptop does it, and or you use the communities. I mean, if presuming New Baltimore has been Zooming or WebExing their meetings or
It's even
Teaming.
done, yeah.
Yeah,
I have one guy who just brings his laptop and.
right, that's all you need to host the meeting.
All right, we'll try it, we'll work it out.
You know, as long as your laptop has the camera on it, you're good, and then people can dial in from.
Yeah, and again, you know, like Shep, I need to get his incentive letter out this week or next week to him. But I'm just not killing myself. These guys, I'm tired. It just happens all the time. Rush, then
Stall.
dead day gone. They're not building right away. They got a bunch of counties aren't finished yet, and I've been up front with them from day one. I'm gonna do it right, the same way we've always done it. You know, vet the numbers, and April and I have been through them numbers more damn ways since Sunday. You know, I've been around to meet with all the town. The sad thing here is we're having a lot of discussion about all the mechanics of these public hearings. Every public hearing I've done since I've been here, one public hearing and one person showed up. So,
Yeah.
and hopefully nobody will show up at this one, because that's what happens when you get prepared.
How many counties is this project going through?
Oh, a lot.
I mean, it's shocking, yeah, it's shocking to me that
It starts on
every
that side of
county
the
you
map?
have to
Oh, yeah, what
negotiate it on
Champlain
your
got.
own. Why is this not some standardized?
Well, how about New York
You
State?
don't want that.
You don't want that to be
You don't want
Article
that.
10?
No, and I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, that makes too much
As
sense
a
in
county
a way.
citizen, we don't want that, let me
Yeah,
put
we
it
don't
that
want
way.
that, but yeah.
There has
But
been
I'm,
a little
from a
bit
big
of,
project standpoint, I'm surprised that
there's been a little bit of.
somebody to pull that off.
Huge resources.
Yeah.
Well, that's just the way that the system's set, you know,
Yeah.
and it's funny because when this first started, I said, you know, if I was 10 years younger, I'd have took the lead, I'd have gotten every single county together and said, look, we all gotta get together, but, you know, no offense, I'm just looking at Greene County.
Yeah.
Well, you know where it ends up at, I ended up sort of coordinating with some of the counties to the north, their incentive package looks, guess what?
Looks just like ours, right?
Ours. And then I just got word from Champlain Hudson yesterday, wanted to know where it was, and he goes, I just wanna let you know that Saratoga and Schenectady County approved the pilot exactly as we offered it to them. And I just sent him back.
Merry Christmas.
And said, isn't that special?
Congratulations.
You know?
Good for you.
So, and then some of them,
Then you have more to give this way.
and some of them, I told them, well, we'll take the pilot as it is, but if somebody negotiates a better deal, we get the same thing.
Most
Most
favorite.
I wish I could negotiate like that every day.
I should have figured out a way for months ago to get it.
We're negotiating, yeah, but,
That's called antitrust in my line.
yeah,
Price protection, call it what you want.
yeah.
So
Right.
anyway, we'll move forward on it.
Every time
don't
I sell
expect it to be
something, I'm
much.
like, darn, I sold
Where are we at?
under the
Part
value.
of June,
Yeah.
part of June. I'm gonna get the incentive offer out to them, which is what they need to just finalize it, what they know, the numbers are. I'm gonna do right by this, but we probably won't do hearings until June-ish into July, and then approve it towards, end of summer. They still seem to be ready to break ground this year, but I'm not convinced that's gonna happen on that.
What's the duration of the project?
About 3 years.
3 years? That's.
Construction said, or, wow,
Huh?
long construction, wow.
How much distances are in Greene County? Is it like 20 miles?
25.
The whole width of the county.
Yeah, but what is that?
25.019256 or something.
Approximately. Is that all it is?
Everything, so that's why
Gotta be more
all
than
these
that.
numbers,
Twenty-
that's based on what they gave us on the mileage. They
Is that what
gave
it
us the
is?
mileage
26
to
miles?
6
Wow.
decimal points.
Yes.
I went back and checked
That's
2 of the
impressive.
segments and they checked out fine. I didn't check every other segment, I just did a little test to see if the numbers look good, 2 look good, so but they have it to 6 and so that's how everything got divided up to 6 decimal points too, so. And if you're a town, we didn't short you nothing. And everybody got treated for, so the last thing I want to add to this, I started and I got distracted. So I've been a little concerned about what happens if these things get pulled into into 275B later, under that, and then they come in and cancel the pilot. Then they say, well, the pilot's not worth it to us anymore, we want to terminate the pilot. So I'd already told them that, look, the host fee is definitely, it's gonna have to be non-terminable. So we have 25 miles, 24 is upland, 1 mile's in the water, and I just said, look, I'm not treating 1 mile differently. We're not doing 2 separate schedules for 1 mile. And then when I told him that, he got back to me later and he made a good point. He said, look, here's the deal. I need something from you and I'm gonna give you something. I said, all right, what are you gonna give me? He's gonna give us, you're gonna sign a non-terminable pilot. They're willing to sign this, and I talked to Paul about it, we can do that. So the host fee and the pilot would be non-terminable, okay? And couldn't be terminated. And what he needed from me was to go back and treat that extra mile in the water differently. And it makes sense. If you know the construction business, it is, all they do, they underground is they have a machine that they just pull like a sled through the mud with a big jet hose on it. And that line just lays right in it and mud falls over it. That's a hell of a lot cheaper to do than direct burying concrete casing. Where the issue came up, and I understood it, it's like, no big deal in Greene County for 1 mile, but what do I do if every other county that has all of it in the river says, well, look, Greene County's getting it. I said, no, you got a valid point, because it really isn't. So it's not reflected in the numbers I sent you. What it does is it brings Catskill's total number down $1 million something over 30 years, something like that. But Catskill's still getting like 9 or 12, 10 million over 30, so it's not a big deal. So that's the only thing that's got to change on that. So anyway, moving right along, Catskill's Renewable Corridor, that's the other project that has been around, same thing, AC, they want to build a DC AC converter station, then run the power line down. I would tell you at this point, it looks pretty solid that they want to do the DC converter station here in Athens. I knew they were looking at other sites, because I called from other landowners. Send a little email. I always love when you send a little email, they find out how did you know where? You're in the county, dude, You just gotta let them know.
Yeah, come on, it's the same community.
But anyway, so that's moving along. They seem to be wanting to do the right thing. I mean, it's typical like your big businesses, and they started all these guys, and the Article 10 process makes you go, okay, like have a public participation plan. So like I hear the town board members like, well, they're calling us, should they do coloring books for the school and stuff? I said, look, don't beat up on them. This is what they're being forced to do. They hire consultants and the consultants say, oh, we should have all this wonderful stuff. I says, don't start judging the project by that. But they will start doing public outreach here very shortly. I told them that I'd like to stay in the loop with them very closely. This would be a good project. The converter station's about 200 million. Even with a pilot, it would be a
And they're gonna do it at where's the location from?
it'd be between 9W and the power plant.
On the same footprint, same owners?
No, it's on.
Oh, so it's a different parcel.
You know, so it'd be partly on, well, everybody knows, my friend Mike Farrell owns a piece that's got all the equipment sitting on there in front of the power plant. So
Right.
it'd be that parcel, which goes all the way back to the power plant too. Now, whether they build on the other side of the power line or the west side of the power line, I don't know. I don't think they know either, to be honest with you. At this point, they haven't gotten that far. But they're willing to do, you know, some nice community projects. Same thing I've told them is work with me, and before you start throwing numbers out to everybody, you know, tell them you're working with the IDA, we'll come up with a package, that's enough, don't. Because it's just problematic when they throw numbers out, and then later those numbers aren't gonna be the numbers, you know? To it, you know, you put a number up at a town board meeting, that number gets, you know, they never forget that. In this case, everybody, in Champlain Hudson's case, everybody's numbers are a lot better than they were thinking they were gonna be, so no harm, no foul. But we've got some other cases where it won't be. Heat capture energy, that's the battery storage in Caro. They just sent me a draft application to look at. I just told them I can't look at it for a week or two and I'll get back. So we might expect to see an application in by next meeting or July's meeting at the latest for them guys. And a lot of I's and dot T's to cross on this one, on that real estate piece and how we take that on that. And then just on project updates with Riverfront Ventures, it's been a struggle. Just, you know, Paul can fill you in on the legal stuff, but anyway, he's going to town down there. He's really going to town. He had Keller was in there last week. What's the name of the company they bought up that does the ground soil stabilization? You see them around all the time. I just can't think of it now. They were in there doing all the slurry pilings, and then Aaron, I just saw them. They just dropped off a 320 this morning with a monster bucket because they got to dig it all back. So he's progressing pretty nicely down there. People are excited, happening. Camptown, if you've been by there, they're going like that's how the heck you did some work for them. They're doing some asbestos abatement up there, I know, and stuff like that. Now,
the entire place.
Yeah, they're going crazy. Good. Freepoint Solar.
I'm gonna write the letter today, and that will get it going. You know, and I'll send you a draft of it, and we can kind of.
You know, I know the project still must be gonna happen because they already paid for the mitigation on the birds. They're doing that now over at the business park. They put money into, part of the mitigation was to go over there on the land we already donated and take tree lines down and stuff like that, so the birds can fly from field to field. And I think that was really all the meat and potatoes I have. But what I'd like to do is ask if we can go into go into an executive session for a short period of time.
Was there nothing on the Catskill Golf Resort? Or that's just in,
Did I have it down? I forgot. He's next year.
Next year, okay.
So that'll be a guy that'll be out over 2.5 years by the
Yep.
time he
Yep.
happens on that and on that. So April.
You have to move to go into executive
a
session.
motion to move.
Was it make that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Is that threatened litigation?
get our string back on.
Okay, you're out of executive session at 9:25.
Okay, so we're out of executive session.
Yeah,
you have
no,
anything
no,
else?
no, no
Okay,
action,
so
no recommendations or actions.
no
We're-
further business, we just need a motion to conclude the meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
Second
Second.
Fred's
All in
motion.
favor?